People like Devin Nunes, he should get, if this all turns out like everyone thinks it will, Devin Nunes should get the Medal of Honor. He is really, what he's gone through and his bravery, he should get a very important medal. Maybe we'll call it the Medal of Freedom, because we actually give them. They're high awards for civilians.
There is a Medal of Freedom. President Trump, in a phone interview with Fox News yesterday, suggesting that Congressman Devin Nunes deserves the Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, for his, quote, bravery in pushing back against Robert Mueller's Russia probe. Joe, my dad got the Medal of Freedom. I don't know. I don't see a parallel. He's lost me yet again on this one.
I love how Donald Trump goes, hey, we could call it the Medal of Freedom, and then after we do that, maybe I got another great idea. Why don't we get the best baseball players throughout history, and we'll put all of their records and plaques in one big building, and we'll call it the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that would be cool.
In this case, though, Casey Hunt, you even have Republicans in the Senate who loathe Devin Nunes, Republicans on the Intel Committee in the Senate who look at him as a bumbling fool who is an embarrassment. I think Donald Trump and maybe 3 or 4 members of the Freedom Caucus may be the only people who aren't embarrassed of Devin Nunes when he walks by them in the hall.
Even people who used to be close to Devin Nunes, the House Speaker, for example, now you speak to people in that circle and they wonder what has happened to Devin Nunes, because he doesn't really bear much resemblance to the guy that they used to know, this California Republican. I mean, he is one of the few people, I mean, we talk a lot on the show about how Republicans talk behind closed doors about this president, which is to say that they all wonder about the safety and future of the country and think what's going on is crazy, generally speaking. Devin Nunes is not one of those people. Devin Nunes is a true believer who is convinced that the deep state is out to get this president, and he wants to dig around as deeply as he can to try to expose it. And, quite frankly, other Republicans in Congress haven't done a lot to stop it. They've enabled it.
They have enabled it, which, again, we've said it for some time, Willie. That's going to be part of Paul Ryan's legacy, that he has enabled the complete bipartisan, the destruction of the concept of a bipartisan Intel Committee, which has always been sacrosanct up on Capitol Hill. But Donald Trump is elevating a guy who the Justice Department and the FBI said was working hard, working overtime to expose the Intel community's means and some of their sources in a way that could endanger American Intel assets. That is who Donald Trump is praising.
Yeah, and that's been a frustration privately also to Republicans. This isn't just Democrats who were saying these things out loud about Devin Nunes. They've been frustrated the way he's handled intelligence. And again, the Medal of Honor line from Donald Trump, it's a throwaway line. And you don't want to get hung up on everything he says and every lie he tells, but but it does, it's sort of an ongoing cheapening of language and cheapening of honors we have in this country. I wish Jack Jacobs were here, Colonel Jack Jacobs, who actually won the Medal of Honor. He might be able to explain to the president what it means to earn that.
Yeah, still ahead. We know Russia meddled in the 2016 election. We do not know what kind of direct impact Moscow had. But one of our next guests is certain that Russia's interference was crucial to Trump's win. We'll dig into that. And a programming note, this weekend, David Gura takes over the reins of the Up franchise beginning tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. And Politics Nation with Reverend Sharpton is moving to a new time slot over the weekend and expanding to 2 days at 5 p.m. Eastern right here on MSNBC.
That's must-see TV.
Oh, yeah. Back in a moment.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.